Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. Me and Dean are back for an hour of fun. Hopefully, you're going to stay with us for that hour because we got loads and loads to discuss. What an eventful weekend in the Premier League. We saw some big teams losing, Dean. I don't think I can remember a weekend where Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal all lost.
Yeah, that is pretty mad, isn't it? Yeah. And your boys didn't win, didn't score.
Drop points.
Didn't score despite all the money spent. Yeah, it's mad. Like this league, it really is. It does remind me of the season when Leicester won the league. Like it's that wide open. Like nobody's like taking it by the horns. Imagine if Arsenal had managed to get a result. They played Everton away. Like they should have got a result there, like on normal terms. But Everton have gone there and done a good job, to be fair. Kind of what we expected. Like the Sean Dyche effect of go direct, use your midfield, use set pieces. That midfield did really well against Arsenal. But yeah, it's a mad one. And now, Man City collapsing. A Man City collapse. Yeah, expulsion from the Premier League, relegation, points deduction. We don't know what's going to happen yet. But yeah, Man City not in a good place.
I feel like the Premier League aren't going to be... I don't know. I feel like I don't have confidence in the Premier League to go, there's going to be a huge points deduction here. Like in Italy, for years, Juventus got away with stuff, and Serie A have actually sort of come down very, very harsh on them in recent weeks. And we've seen in Serie A a big points deduction there for Juve. I think it's 15 points. Could we see similar in the Premier League? Do you think we'll get it, or do you think it will be a slap on the wrist, a fine, maybe no transfers for a window or two?
Yeah, I mean, like City, not impressed with this at all. They don't seem even that worried. They just believe that it's a bigger, what would you say? Not a ploy against them or plot against them, but they feel that this is, they're very surprised about the whole outcome and the fact that this has all been put on them, basically. But yeah, it is like Juventus. Like it is similar to that. They've been deducted 15 points. So even if you got to that sort of stage, like suddenly Fulham are sixth in the league, that's looking good. Suddenly Arsenal are home and hosed. So there's loads of ways that this could open up. I'm not sure how long this process actually takes. Haven't read the finer details of that yet, but yeah, it's a bit of a mad one. I mean, Haley says Man City will get a fine and that's it. I think we've just come to expect that, haven't we? Like that's what most of us probably expect here. Like we'll all be amazed if anything like happened in terms of like relegating them or anything like that. Just can't see it because they just don't tend to do that in the Premier League. But there's a first time for everything. Maybe they'll surprise us. That would definitely change FPL, wouldn't it?
I remember in Serie A 2006, the year Italy won the World Cup, the players went to the World Cup with the fear of loads of their teams being relegated. And Juve that year, of which loads of that Italian squad were Juventus players, got relegated to Serie B. And players like Lilian Thuram and Gianluca Zambrotta went to Barcelona. Loads of the core group left. But Del Piero was like, just can't do it. And I think Fergie was in for Del Piero at the time. And he was like, I can't, my club needs me. And so he stayed and played in Serie B for a season. They obviously smashed it in Serie B and then they're back up. Yeah. Good to see so many in the chat. We've got FPL injuries with us in the chat. Jason, a good friend of mine, Premier FPL injuries. If you don't already follow those guys, hit that little icon and click follow. I promise you, Ben Dinnery is, you must know of Ben Dinnery, Dean. He's the injury expert to go to, and it really helps with FPL on their Friday streams when they're talking about predicted 11s and injuries. And I get a lot of insight from that channel before coming live on this one. So nice, really good follow there to follow Ben for his live YouTube. Dean, we have to speak about that Arsenal-Everton game because you alluded to the fact that Arsenal midfield. I mean, Nana, Doucouré and Idrissa Gueye is like, that's a top 6 midfield, isn't it, in the Premier League?
Be, yeah.
And Sean Dyche clearly is a better manager than Frank Lampard. I mean, what a performance that was. The XG in that game was something like 1.6, 1.7 for Everton. I can't remember them putting those sorts of numbers up. Arsenal conceding those sorts of numbers like at all this season. Yeah. And what's really interesting was it wasn't just set pieces, although they were amazing at corners. There's 7 corners all aimed to the back stick, and eventually McNeil and Tarkowski scored one.
Yeah.
But Everton looked like a team that it could be new manager bounce off the back of the first game back, but they look like a team. They're going to play 4-5-1. They're going to be narrow. They're going to have Calvert-Lewin, if he stays fit, he's going to be like the only real route to goals other than set pieces. And it feels like Calvert-Lewin could be one to monitor for FPL.
Yeah, well, he's got this knock at the moment. He's supposed to be having a scan. So if Calvert-Lewin was out, I mean, they're left with Sims and Morpie. So that's not ideal. But then again, maybe Sean Dyche could make that work too. It was a system that wasn't too dissimilar in its function to when Arsenal failed to beat Newcastle. Like Newcastle, I'm trying to remember who they use now in midfield. I think it was Longstaff, Willock, I think it was, and maybe Joe Linton. And Newcastle, like, they really annoyed Arsenal that day. Like the way that they disrupted their play, the way that they didn't let them get any sort of rhythm going. Everton were like that here too. Yeah. Like the way they were intercepting those balls in the middle of the field, the amount of legwork they put in, short passing just to get the ball out of those areas, and then look to play direct football. They completely did a job, I thought, on Odegaard. I thought that he couldn't get into the sorts of spaces often enough that he wanted to get into, which obviously is between the defence and the midfield, and he couldn't pick up the ball in the areas that he normally hurts people in. And that Arsenal are going to have to find this more and more, that because teams will have watched those too much and feel like, right, this is what we do to Arsenal. We have to win that midfield battle. We've got half a chance of coming out on top. So it's interesting that Everton have managed to do that in Dyche's first game. Of course, it could be a bounce effect, but it's Everton going to Liverpool next. And I tell you what, they got nothing to lose, have they? Like, if they had nothing to lose in the Arsenal game, they've definitely got nothing. Like, Dyche, and we'll be looking at that game thinking, lads, this lot are on their knees. They're in crisis. Like, they've got absolutely nothing about them. They've basically given up at this point. Like, Klopp, I mean, all the excuses he came up with this season, it's ludicrous. He's turning on reporters now who have followed Liverpool weekly for years, and he's blaming them for stuff. It's just a really bad place to be. It wouldn't surprise me if Everton managed to get something
They've got the better midfield.
That game.
They've got the better midfield three. If you look at the midfield at the moment, it's going to be really interesting, that game. I can't wait for it. Can't wait for it.
Yeah, that's a really big game. So I look forward to previewing that at the end of the week too. But yeah, a really big result. LSD Dean, how was the atmosphere on Friday? Do you know what? I mean, I guess it's not a surprise really, given the state of affairs with Chelsea. It was very quiet, really. Like there was no real atmosphere from the home fans inside Stamford Bridge. Fulham, there wasn't a lot to cheer about in their game. It was a 0-0, but yeah, there wasn't a great atmosphere. There was a bit of "he's one of our own" aimed at Reece James at the start of the game. Two massive banners for Reece James. I saw the Reece James kickoff.
Yeah,
two of them. I was like, what is going on here? What a welcome back. Yeah, one in each stand. Huge different ones. I was actually sat next to Reece James's family as well. Sat next to his sister and a couple of his mates.
Did you see her goal at the weekend, mate?
I did see her goal at the weekend. Yeah. But yeah, so they were all taking it in and filming it. I actually turned to them at one point. I was like, what point is Reece James going off? Because I could really, as a Fulham fan, I really just wanted to go.
He went off at 59, so for FPL, literally the worst.
I thought that, yeah. They were like, oh, he's been told he'll play an hour. So I'm just watching the clock waiting for him to go off. And he didn't get to 60. I was like, oh, that's a killer for FPL. But yeah, it's a good result for Fulham. I'll talk a little bit more in a minute, but in the notebook about a couple of things from that game. But I guess the other big story is Jesse Marsch is gone. He's gone from Leeds.
We're both gutted by that, aren't we? We both like Jesse Marsch.
I do like Jesse Marsch. I mean, that's his second job he's been sacked from in a row. It doesn't leave him in a great place. I mean, maybe he has to go and manage the US now. I'm not sure.
We won't see him in the Premier League. Not for the next job, will we? Premier League club.
I mean, Southampton were interested in him before he went to Leeds, and they are on the verge of making a decision over whether to back Nathan Jones or not. I'm not sure that they can. Yeah, I mean, if I was them, I would probably be like, right, get Nathan Jones out and get Jesse Marsch in. I don't think that would be a bad place to be. He'd have so much determination to bounce back. It really can't be that much worse than what Nathan Jones is managing to do right now. So that would be really interesting. I'd like to see them try that. But if they don't do that, then yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for Jesse to get back quickly. It's going to be a really big blow to his ego and his reputation. That and obviously, like for US soccer, a tough one to take too, because he was supposed to be the guy that turned the reputation after Bob Bradley.
Bradley
And what happened with him? Yeah, and what happened with him in the Premier League? Jesse Marsch was supposed to fix all that, but now he's gone. And then you got Ted Lasso doing well on, Apple TV, and it's all a bit of a farce. And Jesse Marsch tried to get away from that TV show as much as he could in his time at Leeds, and never really managed it in the end. But they've been left with 3 or 4 US internationals who are probably like, oh. Yeah,
Honestly.
we've come for, as John says, penny for Weston McKennie's thoughts right now. Yeah.
I mean, at least he's there temporarily. What about the ones they've just bought who have come to play under Marsh and they've spent a ton of money in January?
Yeah, totally. We'll see what they do. I mean, Corberan's very highly thought of at Leeds. So we'll see whether they do decide to go down that route. They are very, very fond of him and have been for everything he's managed to do in the past there. So, it's an interesting situation. Look, I have to admit, it might not be the worst decision because Leeds going into back-to-back games against Man United, I didn't fancy them at all in that situation. But now they've got Armas in charge, caretaker charge. He was just ditched, wasn't he, from Man United? So they've now got a guy. I'm not sure really what to make of that. Either he's got some insight into how Man United works, or if he's as bad as he seemed to have been from how Man United have judged him, they should roll him over. So. Interesting one. Just a couple of questions that have just dropped. Dean, is Mitro not 100%? He looks off it. I don't think he's been 100% for a long, long time, to be honest. I'd say 4 months. Mitro hasn't been 100% ever since he got that ankle knock. He's not 100% fit. But
it was on international duty, wasn't it? The internationals before the World Cup. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a long time. But so he's not 100% fit, but he's going to play every game anyway. Dean, as a non-CFC supporter, what is your strongest Chelsea 11? Oh, I'll have to give that one a bit of thought. And actually in the notebook, I will mention that because there was an interesting... There was something really caught my eye, like being at the game. I was like, oh, this one is interesting. So I'll get around to that.
Is it that the centre-back, our new centre-back, Badashile, was playing so well, yet isn't it in our Champions League squad?
That wasn't it, but that is a great takeaway. He was very, very good. And,
he's so composed, isn't he?
Yeah, at least you like him for the Premier League games.
Yeah, it's great. And then, Thiago Silva will be with a different centre-back partner every other week.
Yeah, mad one.
Guys, thank you so much in the chat. Good to see FPL Zaha's there. Proud Reece James owner. Good to see Leo's with us. Rahul, FPL River, Frode's there too. Tiffany is with us and Paolo. Paolo's mentioned he'd rather have Ted Lasso in charge than Marsh. Thank you guys for watching. Do hit that like button. Look, coming up in today's show, we've obviously got 45 minutes to go, so stay with us. We're going to be looking at the eye test next, and we've got Dean's notebook. We're going to be showing our teams with early thoughts. We've got some tips and chips with some bonus points chat, and then answering some questions throughout the show as well. Chef FPL has just joined. I think Chef is this is a Chef I'm thinking of. This is another Leeds fan. Chef, you've just missed the Leeds chat, mate. We have to touch on, before we get to eye test, a little bit, 2 minutes on Rashford, because the title of this show is Triple Captain Rashford Rejoice. Fair play to those that did it. Like I think those that went hard, and like myself a couple of weeks ago, were punished, and it felt like the week was either the current game week on Rashford or next week on Haaland. We won't know, and for another fortnight, what the right answer was then. But we did say on Friday's stream, whichever one you go with, you're probably going to get returns on both of those. Rashford this week or Haaland next. And look, right now, the smart money absolutely looks on Rashford. Like goal and assist, a couple of bonus. You just can't ask for more than that. And actually, if there's no red card to Casemiro in the 70th minute, there's no red card, Rashford was going to play down the middle, because I think Weghorst came off. You could have got another goal or two, Rashford triple captainers. So you perhaps even a little bit unlucky, although you might argue the assist for the penalty, it's a handball, it's a bit cheap, but you take them. FPL Chef, by the way, isn't a Leeds fan, he's a United fan. It's a different
couldn't have got that
Chef
more wrong.
FPL. What was your take, Dean? Tell us about your Rashford story as well.
Well, I had an absolute mare. So this isn't just in hindsight. I sent you a lot of message like as soon as I realised this had happened. When I was on the way to Chelsea Fulham, obviously I couldn't get on the show on Friday, but I did manage to get a few minutes while I was on the train and watched a bit of the show. And at that point, I was like, oh, I actually do need to update my team. I need to change my captain. I decided like I wasn't going to go Haaland. I was going to go Rashford. Fine. That was the only thing I needed to do. So I sat on the train and you just got the circle spinning as I'm trying to wait. And I was like, oh, come on, come on. Anyway, eventually gone through. Like it said it had gone through. So I didn't really worry about it. Went to change my vice captain. That wouldn't change. So I just left it. It didn't really matter. Anyway, didn't think again about it until I can't remember if it was later that night I texted you or if it was the next day. I can't remember which way around. Anyway, a while later, realised that Haaland was set as captain and Rashford wasn't. And I was so annoyed. Because I should have done it earlier in the week. I decided way before that moment that was going to happen. And I can't remember when I've made an error like this not since the early days of starting this show with you, have I had such a schoolboy moment, to be honest. I thought I was over my amateur stage of this game.
Yeah, you're not a casual anymore, mate.
Yeah, so I've lost a bit of status there. So sorry, everyone, I've let you down. And I dropped quite a few positions too as a result of this error. I'm also now like very skeptical of what I'm getting from Haaland going forward because like Pep is just overthinking everything at the moment. Like to not play KDB in that game blows my mind. The type of service that Haaland is getting has changed. I know he's still got a hat-trick recently, but like if you compare City from the first 10 game weeks to City from the last 10 game weeks, this is two totally different teams in the way that they're performing. And I don't think it's a good thing at all for FPL and understanding what you're going to get from the team on a regular basis. I mean, the amount of responsibility on Rico Lewis in this team structure seems a bit insane. Like he's got such a big job.
Cancelo's job. Literally Cancelo's job. Go and
they
be
call
the
him like
fullback
Mini
that drifts
Lahm.
into
They
the
compare him
midfield.
to Philip Lahm. Like he's supposed to be doing a job that like an experienced, like one of the best players in the world managed to pull off this job.
Out of nowhere.
But yes, so he's got to become this like midfielder type. And then the creation that's leading to Haaland's chances just isn't as obvious as it should be.
Especially when De Bruyne's on the
Grealish, I
bench.
thought, had a good game. But yeah. So yeah, like Sachin says, like Pep's rotation is just not making sense now. And it's not. And I know we've always found it difficult to predict, and that's where Pep Roulette comes from. But it's almost impossible to have no Gundogan or KDB. I don't get it. I don't get what you're thinking is there.
This is a guy that in a Champions League final finally gets Man City to the Champions League final. They've always wanted it, right? Get to the final, Chelsea up, a team they've dominated, I think, that season. And out of nowhere, Pep goes and plays Gundogan as the number 4, the DM. Rodri is benched. Rodri, who's on his debut season at Man City, but been unbelievable, was benched. Just such a weird decision. Played Gundo in that number 4 holding role. And yeah, Chelsea looked fairly comfortable in that Champions League final. Chelsea fans couldn't believe it. Like, it wasn't a smash and grab by any stretch. Like, they deserved that 1-0 victory. Pep gonna Pep. He just overthinks things, which is strange because we're talking about, like, we all rate Pep, and many commentators will tell you he's the best manager in the world or one of the best managers that's ever managed in the Premier League. But when I look at the vacant Champions League title that hasn't happened in how many years, I didn't do it at Bayern or at Man City. Obviously, his Barca teams were great. But then I look at the teams he's managed with the income he's had or the expenditure he's been allowed to have and some of the players he's had at his resources. He should have been winning league titles at Barca and Bayern and at Man City. So look, I'm not saying this guy isn't one of the best to manage in the Premier League. He clearly is, and he plays a beautiful game like no one else. But definitely we can criticize him at times. And like you say, the Rico Lewis, like just putting everything on him, and he feels nailed in this team, by the way, guys, a 3.9 million defender, but then also some bizarre decisions like not playing KDB against the back 3. He's done that a few times. There was a few that thought KDB was going to be benched, and he was. It's a strange one. It's a strange one.
I've still got him. And
me too.
Yeah. Killer, absolutely.
He'll play both in the double KDB though. That's the thing, and we could get
True,
points.
Even
Mahrez was the one that came off for KDB yesterday, and Mahrez had hit the bar. Mahrez has been City's best player of late. Even Mahrez isn't safe. So when we're looking at FPL assets for the double game week, guys, the only 3 or 4 names I can give you that I genuinely think are absolutely nailed to start both games is Haaland and Ederson. They're 2, and I'm gonna say De Bruyne is 3, but even that's risky. outside of that, I can't give you a single name. Rodri should start both. Even the defenders, I'd say Akanji's the safest. Ake should play both, and Rico Lewis should play both. But you wouldn't be surprised if these guys all missed one. Champions League coming up too. Grealish got 90 and has been getting 90. And I'd probably think Grealish is fairly safe as well. But again, I wouldn't put money on it.
Yeah, I thought Grealish played well, and I thought he had something about him. I've been kind of waiting there all season for the Grealish-Holland combination to take off, and it hasn't really. I wanted Grealish like fizzing balls into Haaland, like hard crosses and stuff that he was just going to nudge into the net. Like it just seemed made for it. He's done it at times with England and with Harry Kane, and just haven't seen enough of that. He's getting at people, but just that end product isn't there for Man City at the moment. It's absolutely bizarre. Like Haaland is obviously one of the best finishers we've ever seen. He's got absolutely no service in the areas he wants it. It just doesn't make sense.
Dean, I so forgot. We're not getting through our features tonight. What? So much to talk about from the weekend. So look, we've got loads in today's show. That's our very long intro. But next up, we're going to be snippy. We're going to be fast paced. It is the eye test report. Having such a great time chatting, mate. Having such a great time.
We got loads of time left, don't worry.
I saw someone in the chat said earlier, Gianni's playing on the away end tonight because our screen's the other side. I was like,
oh yeah,
it's
happened
again,
what he's
saying. I was like, okay, are you insinuating something here, or like, no, it's the screen switch. I finally get it.
Yeah.
Guys, eye test report, and there has been a lot to scout this weekend. I'm going to start with the early kickoff on Saturday with Everton, because it's Sean Dyche football and it's working a treat already. Now, what do we like with Sean Dyche football historically? Where have we picked from Sean Dyche players in the past? Well, think of that Burnley team. There were so many times we had Burnley fullbacks in our FPL teams. There were so many times we had Ben Mee or even James Tarkowski or Nick Pope, because Sean Dyche teams will keep clean sheets, especially at home. And in years gone by, I've always looked at managers for clean sheets, and I've thought, wherever Big Sam is, wherever Tony Pulis is, or even at times Harry Redknapp, and I've gone, these managers can keep some cleans. Harry Redknapp, maybe that's a poor example, but definitely Pulis and Dyche and Allardyce. Dyche now at Everton, I'm like, yeah, there's going to be clean sheets there. And really interesting that he's not doing it by going on playing a back five, because Dyche doesn't do that, right? We know Dyche historically plays 4-4-2, and he played 4-5-1, still a back four. But the two wingers, rather than picking the likes of, say, Damari Gray, who's been playing really well, actually, he's been one of Everton's best players. He's gone, no, Damari Gray's a bit of a luxury, maybe not the best at tracking back. I'm going to play McNeil, who I know what I'm getting from, and I'm going to play Iwobi the other side, who I can give a job to and can take tactical instruction. As we saw from Iwobi playing central at the start of the season, he's been very, very good. So Iwobi and McNeil can actually almost play like wing backs. So that back four can become a back six. And look, that's so solid. And Everton are blessed with a lot of good centre backs, or a lot of centre backs. But the likes of Godfrey and Mina and Keane, they're not going to get a look in if Cody and Tarkowski are fit. And Tarkowski, I cannot believe, and this eye test report is on Tarkowski, is 4.2 million. That is such a bargain. Now, Everton's fixtures are really, really good. And what's great about Everton's fixtures, I mean, it's Liverpool up next, which isn't that difficult a game anymore. But then it's Leeds. Then in 25, I think they've got Villa. It could even get a double in 25, unlikely. But then it's Forest, Brentford, Chelsea. What's really cool about Everton is we're going to get a blank game week in 25 and a blank game week in 28. And Everton playing both those game weeks. Really, really nice. You know you're going to get your Everton player out. Many of us might have Patterson on our benches. My concern with Patterson is Sean Dyche, again from Burnley, we know this, he likes to play the same 11 week in, week out. He doesn't rotate much, right? So if Coleman's playing really well, don't think Patterson's going to walk back into this team. And Coleman looked after Martinelli very well at the weekend, and he might like Coleman's leadership and experience. So if you've got a Patterson or a Bueno at Wolves, by the way, these guys, Bueno was dropped for Aït-Nouri and they kept a clean sheet. I'd be looking to maybe move that fifth defender on. And if you are, Tarkowski at 4.2 or Mikalenko at 4.3 are nailed, playing the blanks, have good fixtures, and we'll get clean sheets. I mean, Everton are an impressive team, right?
Yeah, I mean, Pickford too, I think is a decent pick selection now. I left him a while ago, swapped goalkeepers, but Now you're looking at it like he's in good form, and he's now got a decent defensive structure anyway ahead of him. So that's something definitely to think about. You're right about Deitch and like not changing the team. I was asked quite a bit on the back of Everton's transfer window, like, how damaging is this? And I was like, well, it's obviously not ideal because they wanted to sign a centre forward, so they had some more goal threat. But ultimately, Sean Dyche is just going to pick 14 players here that he actually likes out of the 20 odd that they've got, and that'll be it. And like first game, they've played Arsenal, they've won, they made one sub. Like they literally got an injury and made one sub. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that was Calvert-Lewin from Morpie, was it?
Yeah,
I didn't notice
so that's
that. That's so Sean
that's
Dyche.
the only sub we saw.
That's class.
So that's helpful too for us in FPL because you're not going to see changes for the sake of changes.
Yeah.
They'll be well drilled. They'll be very fit for the rest of the season. And there's going to be no room for flair or experimentation here. And for us, I think that's quite a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely do look at Everton defenders, guys. Next eye test report is coming from that Leicester game. Leicester went and scored 4 goals, and they looked really fun. They were slightly different. They've had obviously a few new signings in. We saw the centre back get an own goal, but I think he'll be decent. Tete comes in and plays, the first Brazilian to ever play for Leicester, by the way, Tete, and he looked really good. And it suits what Rodgers wants to do, Leicester, by having fast wingers, right? And if you've got Tete one side and Barnes the other, you're getting a lot of in behinds. Now, if you can do that, you perhaps don't need your number 9 to be a runner. And historically, Brendan Rodgers has always wanted Barnes and then another runner with him. So it's always been Vardy. And if Vardy's injured, then it's Daka. If Daka's playing badly, it's like, okay, what do I do? He does not like playing Iheanacho, this manager. Now, Leicester fans will tell you Iheanacho is the best forward at the moment at the club because Vardy's on his way down and Daka's not been very good. But the reason Iheanacho doesn't play is because he's not the runner in behind. He wants to get on the ball. He's from the Man City Academy. We know he wants to play. Now, every time Iheanacho starts football matches, he seems to score. And he's got a start at the weekend, and he did really, really well. I think there was 2 or 3 attacking involvements. I can't remember if it was 1 goal, 2 assists. I think it might have been. I'm just checking now. Yeah, 1 goal, 2 assists. He only got 66 minutes, never gets 90. But he looked really, really bright. And with Tete's addition, there's 2 runners, Tete and Barnes. I think we could see Iheanacho playing a lot more. He's 6.1 in FPL. I'm not saying go and pick him now. We need to know he's going to be starting regularly. But if he does, and if Rodgers does take that front 3, then have a look at him, because from game week 26 onwards, the fixtures turn for a little bit better. At the moment, they've got Spurs, United, Arsenal up next. Monitor during those games. And then from game week 26, they've got Southampton, Chelsea, Brentford, Palace, Bournemouth. They also play in the blank of 25. Just worth monitoring Iheanacho. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't leave in Jan. I'm surprised there weren't clubs in for him, because the teams that are threatened around the bottom of the table are looking for goal scorers, Dean. And Iheanacho is one. Proven.
Yeah, look, if he doesn't start getting a run between now and the end of the season, he's got to leave. Like, it's free Iheanacho time. Like, he needs to be allowed to go and do what he needs to do. I mean, this was a guy that, when they burst onto the scene, him and Rashford were like neck and neck. Like, who's going to be the superstar out of this team? There's him on one side of town. There's Rashford on the other side of town. Which one is going to score more goals in their career? Who's going to be, the biggest name?
Crazy, yeah.
Just faded, and it's crazy that it's ended up like this, where he's just an afterthought, and like even when he scores, you're surprised by it, because this was instinctive stuff to him, and it should be that Leicester can now get a tune out of him. I mean, it's a good result for Leicester to go to Villa and produce something like that. I think Tete definitely brings a new edge to that front line. That's exactly what he was brought for. Like, Leicester were allowed to go into the market finally and look for somebody that could do that. It looks like they've picked up a good option there. So we'll just have to see. Like Luke says, like he says, Leicester are so inconsistent, you never know what you're getting. And that has been pretty much the case up to now. But if Brendan Rodgers is serious about staying in this job and turning this around, then they need to go on a proper run. And if that's going to be the case, you imagine that Iheanacho is going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I think so. Next up, we're going to move to Wolves. What an Wolves haven't scored 3 goals all season against anyone, including cup games. But this shows how weak the Liverpool defence is at the moment, which is why the Everton-Liverpool fixture is all right. It's all right for Everton. And look, Wolves are impressive 3-0. I'm not going to be looking at Wolves midfielders and forwards because when you look at their attacking numbers, they're right at the bottom of the league, despite her scoring 3. But that Wolves defence I've liked for a long time. I think Jose Sar's one of the good goalkeepers in the league. He'd probably rank in my top sort of 6-7 goalkeepers in the league. And at the back, they've got some good players. Now, I was surprised when they went and got Craig Dawson. I thought, okay, why is Craig Dawson leaving the bench for West Ham for the bench of Wolves? And then I looked at the Wolves team and thought, no, they are short here. And playing alongside Kilman, Dawson looks really good. And historically, over his career, Dawson's been a goal threat. He's not the tallest centre-back, but it's not about height claiming headers. It's about how high you can jump. And clearly, he's very good in the air at timing and got good hang time and some great fast twitch fibres getting him up there. But again, like we saw him score, and he'll get clean sheets. And he also does very well in the bonus point system, Craig Dawson. I think he maybe mopped up all 3 at the weekend. So look, for me, definitely one to monitor. He's 4 point. He's a little bit more than you might expect because he was in a West Ham team keeping clean sheets last year. So he's 4.8 million. But the Wolves fixtures are pretty good. They also play in blank game week 25. They've got Southampton up next. Then they've got Bournemouth. They could even double in 25. It's unlikely, but they've got Fulham in 25 and then Spurs Newcastle. But I see clean sheets on the horizon for Wolves, and I definitely think they'll stay in the Premier League and definitely worth looking. If we're looking for that 5th defender, I still prefer Tarkowski or Mikalenko at Everton. They're cheaper too. But if you don't want to go to Everton, definitely look at Wolves. There's some good value there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as soon as they changed manager, like the whole vibe around the place changed, and Wolves don't seem even concerned about relegation at this point. I think they'll be well away from it by the end of the season, the way things are going. They've just completely forgotten who they were at the start of the season and moved on from it, with probably the team that maybe have been most benefited by the World Cup break. Like they've come out like a completely different club. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. And it'll be interesting to see whether they can now, beyond this season, then actually build on this moment, because there'll be so much interest in players like Ruben Neves, and whether that, it seems unlikely he would stay any longer. But yeah, Wolves definitely a team to look out. But shame they haven't got a bit more goal threat, because I don't actually know who I would trust in that sense.
Yeah. Sarabia looked quite good, and I'm keen to see if he gets a good run of games. But yeah, it's hit and miss with even who's going to be selected up front. There's a lot of depth there now, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, we're going to move on from the eye test report, because next up, before we got Pimp My Team, before we do tips and chips, we're going to look at bonus points, we've got Dean's eye test.
That picture that always comes up kind of takes me back. That was taken in lockdown. It was like when I was at Bleacher Report, and it was like the second week of lockdown, maybe, and we were like getting our heads around how are we going to work? Like, what happens from here? And I had to do like an Ask Me Anything for Bleacher Report. So I just stood in the doorway with like this sign, was like, ask me anything. And yeah, we've still got that picture going strong. But yeah, I keep getting dragged back to lockdown every time I see that picture. I'm going to keep this quite brief, actually. So that's handy, because we've got a lot to get through in the rest of this show. But someone mentioned him a minute ago. Kenny Tete for Fulham is outstanding. It surprised me that like Fulham's pursuit of Cedric throughout the January transfer window. I was like, but we've already got the best right back around. Like Kenny Tete, he missed a lot. Like he wasn't really around for the first 12 games or so. But you look at his output since game week 17. It's been really, really strong. And in that Chelsea game, well, I was just waiting for the bid to arrive afterwards. They're like, oh, we thought we had the best right back around, but actually you've got him. Kenny Tete is better than Reece James.
We just spent 30 million on a backup as well.
Yeah, true. But yeah, so he got a 6-pointer, obviously, against Chelsea for the clean sheet. But I think what is interesting is that Fulham do actually have 4 nice games coming up, potentially. I mean, they've got Nottingham Forest home, Brighton away, obviously, you don't know what's going to happen there. Wolves at home and Brentford away, which is a big derby. But like they're 4 fixtures whereby he could get points in both directions, whether it's getting involved creatively with his crossing, or also just helping Fulham keep clean sheets. And Fulham really don't concede that many goals. I mean, I know that clean sheets hasn't always been the case, but they are definitely a resilient team. And as you've seen, when you've got players like Tim Ream throwing themselves at the ball and stopping things, it's very helpful for people like Kenny Tete to keep getting points. So I think he's one to have on your watch list. Like I wouldn't say like definitely go for him, but if you want an option, he's available at 4.4 million. Literally nobody's got him. He's 0.4% owned, and I watch him every week, and he is definitely worth a watch because honestly, he's such a good player.
Is he Dutch? What nationality is he?
Yeah, Dutch. Yeah.
He's Dutch. Doesn't get in the squad though, not yet.
No, I don't think so.
Because the likes of Malacia get in the squad at United. Tete's a better fullback than Malacia.
Matt Rooney says, I'd rather buy Kenny Everett. Bizarre comment. Just to cross over, and again, just talk about this game that I was at, because obviously you do see things a bit differently. And look, Mudryk didn't get a look in, like literally didn't get a look in.
Did he have a cold, or was Potter just protecting him?
It's an absolutely bizarre thing.
So he came off at half time.
It's a bizarre thing.
Don't play him if he's ill, mate.
If he's that ill that he can't get through the first half, then either take him off early or just don't play him. But Noni Madueke came on, and I liked him.
I heard a lot of Chelsea fans that were there said how amazing he was. Watching it on TV, though, mate, I didn't think he looked good at all. I thought
that's really interesting.
Loose.
I wondered how that would have come across. He looked really dangerous. He was going both sides, both flanks. I don't know where he fits in is the problem. I don't know how much game time he's going to get, but he was actually probably the biggest threat for Chelsea on the night.
Interesting.
Like if you were looking at the game, I was looking at the game thinking, where are they going to score from? And I was most worried about him, to be honest, as well as Reece James, obviously, but he was going off. So, yeah, he is... I don't know much about him. I didn't even know which flank he was supposed to be playing on.
Yeah.
I don't think Graham Potter did either, to be honest. I think he played in both sides. So I don't know where he expects him to end up. But you've got Mudryk. You've got João Felix coming back now. You've got Raheem Sterling, who came on as well as a substitute. I don't really know. You had Ziyech. Pulisic will be back at some point. You've got all of these guys. It's like 6 or 7 of them. Aubameyang's off now in the under-21s or something. So, yeah, I don't know when Noni's going to fit into this.
He needs to play on the right because all the others prefer playing on the left. And I think he does prefer playing on the right. But all the others, like most of those names you've just mentioned, prefer playing on the left.
Well, he can. He definitely can. And I think that's worth pointing out just to see how much he starts to figure. But Chelsea... especially in these next 2 games, they got West Ham away and Southampton at home, which could be a game when, they can score a few goals too. They'll be looking to unlock on that one. So yeah, just thought it was worth pointing that one out.
Yeah, no, good to get that report live from Stamford Bridge. There's 322 of you watching this Monday night. Thank you guys for the support. Mondays and Fridays, we do this twice a week. We only do lives. We do lives so we can interact with the chat, and great to see you guys chatting amongst yourselves there. We've obviously got our eyes on absolutely all the comments as well. Eddie's just asked me, should I go for Martinelli? Got 6.9. Who should I get for Martinelli? Odegaard want Nketiah for Martial. Yeah, I mean, look, selling Martinelli for Odegaard, I know it's a sideways move. That's a move I'd absolutely make. But if you can go Nketiah for Martial and you're going to get 3 Arsenal, I think having 3 Arsenal this week is key. Arsenal not only have the double, but Arsenal play in the blank game week 25, which is really, really important. I think, I'm just checking now, pretty sure they play in blank game week 28 as well. And in between that, they've got Bournemouth and Fulham. So having 3 Arsenal going into this week, if you have to take hits to get there, get there. But having the 3 right Arsenal is really important too. So Martinelli, we saw 59 minutes. He got 1 point. Me and Big Man back on Friday stream. Big Man was telling me not to sell Martinelli for a hit. I sold him for a hit because I just think Trossard's going to eat into those minutes. And eventually, I know I don't want him long term. I want Odegaard. I want Saka. It will be one of them with Nketiah. So for me, Martinelli is a very easy sell now, guys.
Yeah, interesting that. I'm not sure about this Man United thing either with Martial and Weghorst. I'm intrigued by who ends up getting the most minutes there. I really can't tell at the moment. I just hope Rashford stays out on the left for their sake. Like they don't. I hope they don't get the temptation to start playing him centrally. I don't think they will because I think it's working too well. But yeah, when someone is in that kind of form in front of goal, I'm sure there is a temptation to just stick him in the middle, but you want him arriving there. You don't want him to start there. And I think that's why even Weghorst isn't having that much goal threat. I think his positional play is actually really functional for this team, and he can just drop out of the spaces that others run into. So I think actually he's been quite good.
That's a great point, Dean. I was looking at the average position maps from Saturday, and Rashford, although he's on the left, he's so far and clear the most advanced player in that football team. And Weghorst's average position is so much deeper. So he's playing up front, he's playing closest to the goal, but he's wide on the left. That's absolutely where he has to be. I'm with you there.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer. And yeah, Weghorst is good for him. Guys, we're going to move on to have a look at our teams. Let's see how we did, and we'll give you our early thoughts on what we're looking to do for the game week to come. This has been my team.
Yeah, 50 points. Yes. No, don't like it. Didn't like it at all this game week. Not had a good time. Saved by Chelsea, which I don't like either. Wish they didn't keep a clean sheet, but they did. I brought in Wan-Bissaka. It was... I couldn't really afford it, like the actual money. I would rather have had Luke Shaw, but just couldn't. I wanted to bring someone else from United to make sure I had two players for this. So it was really annoying that they conceded. Like, I was really annoyed about that. I think Wan-Bissaka's actually done really well as well, like generally in the last few game weeks. And he's one of those where like the coaching element of Ten Hag has really paid off. Like, he's actually
100%.
turning players' form around, which is supposed to be a manager's job. Rather than just buy players, you're supposed to like actually make people play better. And he's doing.
He now
that.
doesn't look like a championship player on the ball. He looks like he looks a bad Premier League player on the ball, but he doesn't look championship at least.
Yeah, but it's improving, and like because this team's looking better, and like they've got such set roles, and Ten Hag has such high standards. He's under a lot of pressure with every single decision he makes, and I think it's actually been a good thing for him that exists. He can't be lazy on the ball. He can't make poor decisions anymore, and he's fighting for his future, isn't he? So, yeah, that's interesting. Amex says, "Did Dean forget to change captain?" Yeah, I addressed that at the top of the show. I did. I didn't forget to change captain. I tried to change captain. I thought I had changed captain, and the app says no. So,
Dean, we're gonna. Do you know what? I'm gonna have to interrupt you here. We need to get your team off screen. We're getting too many bad reviews. People are tuning in thinking this show is just for casuals. So we're gonna have to show my team, mate.
Go.
If you're just tuning in, we take FPL very seriously round here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't normally make substitutes and trains. I promise.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just a bad week for you. We'll see.
The thing is, if I'd have got the Rashford captaincy over the line, I'd have beaten you. I'd be beating you. That's how bad that decision was.
And you've still got your triple captainship. So if you'd even gone there, like if you were streaming on Friday, you may have even triple captained.
I wouldn't have. I was going to be stubborn over that. So I can't claim that was going to be the case. I have got one in mind for a triple captain, so I'll tell you that on Friday. But yeah, it wasn't going to be this one, no matter what would have happened on that show.
Just to mention triple captain, I think it was Hayley earlier in the show mentioned she's waiting for Harry Kane. And I just wonder if you're looking at the same. In game week 29, there is a chance. Spurs will have Everton and Southampton in a double. Not bad. Although they're both away from home, but maybe Kane's away form has been really good this season. So yeah, one to consider. Look, I should have known. Amax straight away. Havertz poor. Why? Marshall, that is catty. Why is it I can't post my team on Instagram or Twitter or on this show without someone, usually Dean, mentioning Kai Havertz? Like, this guy has outperformed Martial, who's in most of so many teams, and he's outperformed Mitrovic, who's in so many teams. Yet every time I see a team with Mitrovic or Martial posted on Twitter, I don't see tons of comments going, why is he in your team? But Kai Havertz, every time I post my team, I get, why is Kai Havertz there? But he's the same price point as Martial and Mitro, and he scored more points. So don't at me with Kai Havertz. Honestly. Now, look, by the way, I hold my hands up. He's been a poor buy. But go back to the same point. Martial, Mitro. Havertz has to go this week, Dean, doesn't he? You were there on Friday night. The week before against Liverpool, VAR goal ruled out in the first few minutes, really unlucky, a toe offside. And this week, hits the bloody beans on toast. So
Yeah.
unlucky for points, but he wasn't good, was he?
He just doesn't fit into that role. Like, he just doesn't. Like, this is the problem that Chelsea have got now. Like, they've got too many players that they're not getting the best out of. Like Mount and Gallagher at the moment. Like, they're not playing the positions or the roles in that team that are going to get the best out of them. Like, you want Gallagher, Mount getting up there, playing right off the centre forward, but Havertz isn't a normal centre forward, so they not even do it. They don't play in the way that would really help them. They need a number 9 for this team to work, and Kai Havertz, it doesn't seem is going to be that. Certainly not at the moment in the Premier League, anyway. And look, it's not going away, the Bayern Munich link. And I think if he doesn't get some hope of this turning around in the rest of this season, I think he'll be wondering, like, does he even want to stay? Because he's got too much potential to be wasted here. And he's at a stage of his career where I'm sure he's getting itchy feet about, I don't want this to, I can't wait 2-3 years for Chelsea to take off again. Yeah, you need to get rid of him, mate. You need to get rid of him.
So my plan, I took a 4-point hit. I sold Martinelli knowing I was going from 2 Arsenal down to 1 Arsenal, but I will have 3 Arsenal. I promise you that going into the double game week. So very simply, Kai Havertz will be going to Nketiah, and then I'll either be selling Bruno or Solly March to Saka or Odegaard. But again, I'll be waiting to see. Look, maybe Bamford doesn't play or is injured or dropped under the new manager, and I have to sell Bamford to Nketiah, and Kai Havertz lives to fight another day. But yeah, I absolutely want to be selling Kai this week. I'm interested to see though. I do think Felix will come in and play with Kai. And maybe that could make him slightly better, because we saw that link up at Craven Cottage, Dean. You were there that first half, Havertz and Felix on a level.
Yeah, I did just see Lee said Havertz is sloppy. He's not good enough for a prime team. I mean, that just isn't true.
Starts for Germany, for God's sake. He's Germany's number 9 at a World Cup.
That is honestly not true, Lee. Like, he is so good, and that's part of the problem here. That's why he's in the team every single week, is because Chelsea know that, like, in terms of technique and potential, a bit like Havertz might be the best player they've actually got. That's the problem here. So they're playing him through the middle, which at the moment isn't how they're getting the best out of him. So I think, actually, like we said there, you said about Felix, when he played against that Fulham, there was a connection between them. Felix is on his level. There aren't many players at Chelsea that have been on his level, and I think that has been a massive problem with that team, because anyone that's come into it has just dropped. It's kind of how Liverpool are at the moment. Like, they signed Cody Gakpo, expecting him to, like, turn things around. But when you're going into a negative environment, you can't always do that. It's difficult, and you get affected, and suddenly your level drops a bit and you're not as effective or efficient as you were previously. I feel like that's happened a little bit for Havertz. Like, he can't have the same freedom and, well, I guess, like, he can't just, he used to, like, make up tricks on the spot almost. Like, when he was young, like, he was coming through. Like, he was so skillful. You don't really see that much of him at the moment in that sense, because he's almost forced to play these other easy balls. But I think that's probably the biggest issue.
He's got little space playing as the number 9 as well. He's got 2 centre-backs on him constantly. He's not between the lines, as we saw at Leverkusen back in the early days. Guys, he is on penalties, by the way, Kai Havertz, so he should be on penalties. With Jorginho having left. And he's got a record of 14 and 14, interestingly enough. Elite penalty taker. He's German, of course he is. Just to mention Kepa's 10-pointer, amazing. You're competing with your teammates with bonus points, and Chelsea is teammates. Goals and assists is the currency in FPL, and Chelsea don't get them. So Kepa can mop up the bonus. Solly March. Matoma over March 3-4 weeks ago, or March over Matoma, has absolutely rinsed me. It's about 45 point swing, that.
It's cost you a lot, hasn't it? That
is huge, that swing. So there we go. I think Solly's probably going to have to go. I think he missed another big chance at the weekend. He's just a poor finish.
You were unlucky though. We couldn't tell at that moment which way to go, and
should have waited a week. And then I would have gone Matoma. One more week to scout. But guys, I had a question about Ake and Akanji very quickly. My thoughts on that. Who's more likely, Amar says, to play in both games, Ake or Akanji? I'd say Akanji slightly. I'd put Akanji's hopes of playing both probably at 85%, and Ake's at 75, 80. but there's little in it. I think both are two very good picks if you're looking to cover that City backline. Pep seems to like both, but it's Pep. And we said earlier in the stream, the only safe defender to pick that's absolutely nailed for every game is Edison. And, even KDB isn't safe. Mahrez isn't safe. Haaland should be, but you won't get 2 sets of 90. So hard to call that one.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, by the way, guys, we'll have our teams, Dean and I, tune in for Friday's show because we'll be showing our teams in full with our transfers, Friday, 7 p.m. Do not miss that. Next up, loads of people are interested in bonus points. We're going to talk through some of the bonus point beasts from the weekend just gone. JP asks what to do with Luca Dean. Dean has to go. JP, sell him. He's going to get massively reduced minutes with a new left back in town.
Yeah.
Oh, Tarkowski. We actually spoke about Tarkowski earlier, didn't we? Which is great.
We did.
So we don't.
I didn't realise he was that cheap. Yeah, I just didn't realise he would be that cheap.
I can't believe he's that cheap. I guess he was injured at the start of the season, so he's dropped from 4.5. But even 4.5 is good money.
It's even cheaper than Wan-Bissaka. Damn it.
Yeah. And he'll get more minutes unless he gets injured. But look, the clearances, 5 interceptions, duels, you're getting bonus points for all those things. The goal doesn't give you massive BPS as a defender. You jump, I think a midfielder jumps 18, a forward 24, and a defender something like 10 or 15 or 12. So I don't think it makes a huge difference to defenders. Like, it was on for bonus before the goal. Interesting that McNeil features. The corners, successful corners, the chances created. But yeah, Tarkowski 37. He's going to get clean sheets, and he's always been a bit of a goal threat. So yeah, I like that call a lot. And Everton just look like they could be a really, really good defence. But we also picked out another player in bonus points beats. So let's move on from this fixture that we've spoken a little bit about. I'll move on to United. Look, Bruno and Rashford was a really interesting debate. Like, who's going to outscore who? And what was really interesting was Rashford got a goal and an assist. So Rashford gets 2 attacking returns. Bruno only gets 1 attacking return, just the goal. But Bruno still scores more bonus points. What does that tell us? Well, when you look at the baseline BPS, so baseline BPS is the stuff away from the goals and the assists and the clean sheet. So it's the stuff that's like all those other metrics. There's 32 metrics to make up the bonus point system. So how does he perform in recoveries and blocks, interceptions and key passes and dribbles? And when you look at the baseline of a player, it really shows how good they are in terms of just normal stats, right? Bruno's baseline is always very, very good. So when he does get an attacking involvement, a goal and assist, he's almost guaranteed bonus points. Kevin De Bruyne, another prime example. KDB gets a goal or assist, he's guaranteed to get bonus in that game. Now, a lot of forwards, and certainly Rashford, have really poor baseline bonus because they get clocked for things like being offside, minus points, missing a big chance, minus points, not having many key passes and high pass completion because they're out on the wing or they're up front, they don't get a lot of the ball. So, yeah, really interesting in this game. Despite the 2 attacking involvements, Bruno still outperformed him. And it just goes to show, if we see a Bruno getting goals and assists, he's a really good FPL option, not just because he's getting those points, but he'll also guarantee bonus. And we saw it under Ollie, didn't we? He was scoring goals every week, and he went for a phase of getting tons of pens. If we start seeing that again with Bruno, get him in your teams at 9.9 because he'll pick up 3 additionals all the time.
It's just that price point difference between the two of them, isn't it? I mean, Rashford at £7.2 million got to be one of the best value players in the game. Like, it's just so much difference there to get to Bruno at 9.9 and having both. But if you're just going to pick one, you're going to go with Rashford, especially the goal threat that he's got at the moment. Look, it's good to see Bruno back as an option because he'd gone way off the boil. I was really concerned about what had happened to him. Yeah. So I'm glad to see him reborn. And it doesn't seem to matter really where he plays. He keeps drifting over to that right side. And he's really effective there too. So it's interesting. But obviously at the moment as well, like United now missing Eriksen and Casemiro for the next couple of games. Like, that's an option. You wonder how it will affect Bruno. Like, obviously Sabitzer can come into the team, but he's never actually functioned in there before. It might be that Bruno has to be a little bit more cagey and play a little deeper than he might normally. We'll wait and see. It might not be the case, but it's just one thing that would maybe put me off a little.
Yeah, I hear that. And it's interesting, if you've got Rashford, you're not going to jump ship, but I think accommodating both is definitely on the cards. However, United blank in game week 25, which is a little bit of an issue because in game week 25, we've got Newcastle, Brighton, and United all blanking. So we've got to be selective with what assets we want to keep after that. And what's really interesting is after game week 25, United play Liverpool, then they play Southampton, but then in 28, they're also very likely to blank. So if they're going to have 2 blank game weeks over a 4-week period, you're probably going to sell the likes of Bruno and Luke Shaw and maybe a Wan-Bissaka. I think Rashford you probably hold like for the whole season the way he's playing. But other than Rashford, no United player seems safe. And in that week, look, Kieran Trippier is another one. You're not going to sell Kieran Trippier just because he's got a blank game week. He's been so good. So you look at it and think, okay, those fringe players in your Newcastle teams, your Almirons or your Man United teams, your Brunos, they're probably going to have to go, bearing in mind not only a blank in 25, but a bit like United, Newcastle also, no, they actually will play in game week 28. They've got Nottingham Forest, so not as bad.
Yeah, not as bad. But yeah, also like there's an opportunity here because there are so many players, like because the premiums aren't performing, most of them. There's actually a lot of scope here to give yourself real options in these blanks. Like you can stick with a Rashford and also get in a player you obviously don't have Salah anymore, and maybe you don't need KDB at this rate. Like there are those players that you thought you couldn't live without, Son, whatever it was, that you just don't have really the dilemma over anymore. So it means that you can have more of those players that are like more average price points that I can't remember many seasons in recent times where that was really the case in midfield.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Guys, awesome to have so many of you watching, 375 of you watching, which for a Monday night is really, really cool. And we need these sort of numbers to go, yeah, we want to continue doing this Monday night slot at 7 p.m. So if you like the Monday night slot at 7 p.m., show us by hitting that like button. That will really show us that this is the good time slot to continue with. And great to see the chat has been so lively. I've seen a few new names in there as well. Good to see Matt Allen and mainly Minimal. Danish is in there and Lobby and JP. FPL Marshall's there as always as well. Shad is there too. Replacements for Stones are Shad. If you want to go with Man City, I think Ake or Kanji are the two. Or maybe you want to save money and go with Rico Lewis. There's options there. But you don't have to stick with Man City. There's, as we've mentioned, like the likes of Tarkowski could be a really good pickup. We've got Maselani from Zambia. Sorry, mate, go on.
I didn't think I'd be in this situation. We'd be encouraging people to switch from Man City assets to Everton, but what a difference a week makes.
Sean Dyche. Francis is just joining us. Evening, folks. It's Francis. Francis, you're going to have to go back and watch the last hour, mate.
Yeah, you've got a shout out, Francis, but you've got an hour to catch up on. We've got 1 minute left.
Praga in Australia is watching. That's pretty cool. Good day to you, mate. And guys, if you're enjoying the sort of stuff on YouTube, then do check out Dean on Ranks FC YouTube. And also you can check out my YouTube channel as well. I'll put the link in the chat in just a second. And make sure you're following us both on Twitter. Dean, you're getting a bit more active on Twitter, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Grudgingly, I realise it probably benefit my career and my profile if I do start tweeting again. I hate it, people. Like when you're tweeting transfer stories or even like mentioning transfer stories, you're always getting someone's back up. So even if the story ends up being true, you don't get any like well done or pats on the back for it. You just get in the moment mostly abuse. A lot of people don't mind that. I just did it for years and then eventually got a bit fed up with it. So I eased off of it, but I am trying to get back involved in it now. So I am on Twitter, and if you want to come and say hello, I should see it now. I should see it.
Good man. Well, one thing is for sure, we'll both be back on Friday at 7. So we'll see you. We'll see you very soon, guys. It's we've got Man United on Wednesday night. So good luck for those of you that are triple captained Rashford. Good luck for those of you that have gone for a Leeds asset. Let's hope we get some Nonto goals and some Bamford goals. But for now, he's been Dean, I've been Janny, and we've been chasing green arrows.